Welcome back to The Deep Read. I'm Mike, and I'm here with Emily for a deep dive into The Book of Love by Kelly Link.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a wild one, so
It is.
we're going to jump right in. We got teens back from the dead, a magic system woven into music, and a goddess who collects statues of people.
It's an interesting collection.
What's not to love?
You know what really struck me? I think it's how Link takes this typical chosen one trope and turns it on its head.
Yeah.
These teens aren't exactly destined for greatness. They're stumbling through grief, love triangles, homework,
Right.
while the fate of multiple worlds hangs in the balance. It's almost relatable in a bizarre way.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical hero's journey. And it makes you wonder, is magic a gift or a curse?
Right.
Think about Laura. She can manipulate memories, but is that really a power anyone should have? Is she helping or hurting by reshaping reality?
That's a good question. It really blurs the line between free will and manipulation. Like, if you could erase someone's bad memories, where do you draw the line? And on a bigger scale, it makes you wonder if any of the characters truly have free will, or if they're all playing parts in this grand cosmic game orchestrated by Mr. Anabin and Bogomil.
And don't forget Malo Mog lurking in the background. She's not just some distant deity. She's actively trying to break into the human world,
Right.
turning people into stone statues. Talk about a hostile takeover.
Yeah.
What do you make of her motivations?
I found it interesting that Malamog isn't just power-hungry. She's motivated by loss. She's lost her key, which represents her control, and she's desperately trying to reclaim it. It makes her a more complex villain, someone driven by grief and longing, not just a thirst for power.
Right. It makes her actions a bit more understandable, even if they're terrifying. But what about the key itself?
Yeah.
It's literally split, with one half being Laura's old guitar.
Yeah.
That's such a strange detail.
Uh-huh.
What do you think Link is trying to say with that?
It's like she's saying that magic is often hidden in plain sight.
Right.
We see this with Mr. Anabin, too.
Right.
Just a music teacher, right? But his lessons are shaping destinies. It makes you wonder what other seemingly mundane things in our lives might hold a deeper magical significance.
Like those hidden object games, but with the fate of the world at stake.
Exactly.
And then there's Bowie. He's constantly shifting between human and bird form, caught in this weird in-between state. Maybe think about the different ways we deal with loss and change. Some of us adapt like Bowie, while others like Mo struggle to let go.
Bowie's transformations are so visually striking, but they also point to the theme of identity. He's not fully human, not fully bird, and it's like he's searching for his true self. Maybe that resonates with the teens, too. All of them are trying to figure out who they are in this new reality where death isn't the end.
Definitely adds a layer of complexity to the whole coming-of-age thing they've got going on.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Mo's accidentally summoning his deceased mother.
Yeah.
From a romance novel, no less.
Oh, my goodness.
What did you think about that scene?
It's hilarious, but also incredibly poignant. It speaks to the power of fiction, how these stories we immerse ourselves in can become so real to us. Mo's grief over his grandmother is intertwined with the loss of this fictional character, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. It asks, what is real when it comes to love and loss?
It's like how we sometimes get more attached to fictional characters than real people.
Exactly.
And speaking of complex relationships, there's Laura and Daniel's on-again, off-again romance.
Yes.
It's even weirder because they're technically both dead. Does this change the stakes of their relationship, or is it just teen drama amplified?
I think it highlights how love can be both a source of strength and a vulnerability. Their connection seems to defy death, but it's also messy and uncertain. Does death make their love more profound, or does it make it harder to move on to form new connections? And then there's Susanna, who is caught in the middle, her feelings for Daniel evolving as Laura is presumed dead. It's like Link is saying that even in the face of supernatural chaos, human emotions are just as messy and unpredictable.
Definitely makes for a compelling love triangle, even with a goddess trying to enslave everyone. And speaking of Susanna, we see her slowly becoming more receptive to the magical world around her. At first, she seems like the most grounded character, but then she starts having vivid dreams about Bogomil, the wolf-like gatekeeper. What do you make of her arc so far?
I think Susanna represents the reader in a way. She starts out skeptical, like many of us would be, but she's slowly drawn into this world of magic and mystery. Her dreams about Bogomil hint at a hidden power within her, a connection to the supernatural that she's only beginning to understand. It's almost like she's being pulled into the game whether she wants to play or not.
And that game is definitely rigged, right? They have to master magic to survive and please Malo Mog. It's like a twisted internship with a power-hungry goddess as your boss.
Right.
How do you think this pressure cooker environment affects them?
It forces them to grow up fast. These are teens dealing with life or death situations while also trying to navigate friendships and first loves. It's a potent metaphor for the pressures we all face, the way we're often thrust into situations we're not prepared for, and forced to make tough choices with limited information.
It's like Link is saying that adulthood isn't a destination. It's something that's thrust upon you, often in the most unexpected and unpleasant ways.
Exactly. And the fact that they're competing against each other for a chance to survive adds another layer of tension.
Right.
It makes you question the nature of their friendships. Are they truly allies or are they rivals, each vying for a chance to stay alive?
It's like Survivor, but with magic and a lot less sunscreen.
Exactly.
And speaking of survival, let's talk about Mau's relationship with Thomas.
Okay.
He's clearly drawn to Thomas,
Yeah,
but he's also wary of him knowing that he's a servant of Molo Moog.
right,
It's a dangerous game he's playing, trusting someone who might betray him.
right.
It's like he's caught between a rock and a hard place, or maybe a wolf god and a power-hungry goddess. What do you think Link is trying to say about the nature of trust and betrayal, especially in the context of young love?
I think it highlights how vulnerable we are when we open ourselves up to love, especially when we're young and inexperienced. Mo is yearning for connection, but he's also aware of the potential for heartbreak and betrayal. And it raises the question, can you truly love someone who serves a different master? Someone whose loyalties may be divided?
It's a question that resonates even outside the world of the novel. How much do we compromise ourselves for love? Who do we trust, and how do we protect ourselves from betrayal? These are questions that Link explores with nuance and complexity, making the Book of Love much more than just a fantastical adventure.
Absolutely. It's a story that stays with you long after you finished reading, prompting you to reflect on your own relationships, your own choices, and your own beliefs about love loss and the nature of reality.
And speaking of reflections, have you noticed how Link uses the setting Love Send to mirror the character's emotional states?
Absolutely. It's not just a backdrop. Love Sen is this quirky seaside town, but it's also full of secrets and hidden histories. There's a sense of melancholy, of things lost and forgotten that reflects the teens' own experiences with death and return. And the constant presence of the ocean with its storms and unpredictable tides mirrors the chaotic forces at play in their lives.
It's like the town itself is a character,
Yes.
shaping the lives of those who inhabit it.
And the way she describes the town with its rundown amusement park and hidden tunnels creates an atmosphere of both wonder and unease. It's like a place where magic could exist, but where it also might come at a cost.
Like a darker version of Disney World, maybe?
Exactly. There's a sense of both attraction and repulsion, a feeling that Lovesen is both a place of refuge and a source of danger. It's a brilliant reflection of the novel's central themes, how magic and wonder can be intertwined with darkness and loss.
It's like she's saying that beauty and danger often coexist, that light and shadow are two sides of the same coin.
And that complexity is what makes the Book of Love so compelling. It's not a simple good versus evil story. It's a nuanced exploration of human nature, the choices we make and the consequences we face, all set against a backdrop of magic mystery and a whole lot of heart.
And a talking wolf god.
Hmm.
Let's not forget Bogomil.
Right. He adds another layer of intrigue to the whole thing. He's this ancient being bound to serve Molo Mog, but he also seems to have his own agenda. It makes you wonder, whose side is he really on? Is he a friend or foe to the teens?
He's definitely not giving anything away easily. He speaks in riddles and cryptic warnings. It's like he's testing them, forcing them to figure things out for themselves.
And that, I think, is one of Link's key messages. We can't rely on others to tell us the answers to guide us through life.
Yeah.
We have to forge our own paths, make our own choices, and learn from our own mistakes.
It's like she's saying that true growth comes from embracing the unknown,
Right.
from facing our fears, and from trusting our own instincts.
And that's a message that resonates deeply, even outside the realm of fantasy. It's a reminder that life is a journey, not a destination, and that the most important lessons are often learned through experience, not through instruction.
It's a reminder to be present, to pay attention, and to never stop questioning, exploring, and discovering.
And to be open to the possibility of magic, even in the most unexpected of places.
Speaking of unexpected places, one of the things that struck me about the Book of Love is how Link weaves together so many different genres.
Right.
We've got fantasy, horror, romance, even a bit of literary fiction thrown in for good measure.
Yeah.
How does this blending of genres contribute to the overall impact of the story?
I think it creates a sense of disorientation, which mirrors the character's own feelings of being lost and unmoored. We're never quite sure what to expect.
Right.
Just like the teens are constantly being thrown into situations they're not prepared for, it keeps us on our toes just as they're constantly having to adapt and adjust to the ever-shifting landscape of their lives.
It's like she's saying that life itself is a genre-bending experience full of unexpected twists and turns, moments of joy and sorrow, and a whole lot of gray areas in between.
Exactly. And that refusal to be categorized to fit neatly into any one box is part of what makes the Book of Love so fresh and exciting. It's a story that defies expectations, challenges, conventions, and ultimately rewards us with a reading experience that is both unique and unforgettable.
It's a book that demands your attention, but it also rewards you with moments of sheer beauty, insight, and, yes, even a bit of humor.
Speaking of humor, one of the things I love about Link's writing is her ability to find the absurd in the everyday, the funny and the tragic.
Right. It's not slapstick comedy, but there's this subtle wit, this wry observation of human behavior that makes you chuckle even as you're contemplating the deeper themes of the story.
Like the scene where Mo accidentally summons his deceased mother from a romance novel.
Yeah.
It's hilarious on the surface, but it also speaks to the power of fiction, the way we can become so invested in these stories that they blur the lines between reality and fantasy.
It's like she's saying that even in the face of death loss and a power-hungry goddess, there's still room for a bit of laughter, a moment of absurdity, a recognition of the inherent ridiculousness of the human condition.
And that humor, I think, is part of what makes the Book of Love so human, so relatable. It's a reminder that even in the midst of extraordinary circumstances, we're still just people trying to make sense of the world, connect with others, and find a little bit of joy along the way.
And that's a message that I think we can all appreciate, whether we're battling ancient goddesses or just trying to get through another Monday morning.
And speaking of Mondays, we're going to have to wrap up this part of our deep dive into the Book of Love.
But don't worry, we'll be back soon to delve deeper into the mysteries of this captivating novel.
Until then, keep those pages turning and those minds churning. One thing that keeps coming back to me is how Link uses music as a kind of magic system. It's not just background noise, you know? It's literally shaping reality.
It's true. Think about the scene where Mr. Anabin summons Bowie from bird form in the music room.
Right.
The music is what makes the transformation possible. It's like the spells are woven into the melodies and the instruments become tools of enchantment.
It makes you think about the power of art in general, how it can move us, change us, even transport us to other worlds.
Right.
And in this case, music literally becomes a bridge between the human and supernatural realms.
And it's not just Anabin using music for magical purposes. Laura's ability to manipulate memories seems connected to music too.
Right.
Remember how she can influence people's actions by playing certain songs on her guitar?
It's like she's rewriting their personal narratives through music.
It adds another layer to the idea of music as a form of communication.
Yeah.
But it also makes you question the ethics of it. Is it right to use music?
Right.
Something that's supposed to be beautiful and expressive for manipulation and control.
Mm.
It's a question that Link leaves us to grapple with. It's like she's saying that art, even in its most beautiful forms, can be used for both good and evil. It's a reflection of human nature, how we can take something that's meant to uplift and inspire and twist it to serve our own selfish purposes.
And that duality is present in the characters themselves. None of them are purely good or evil. They're all complex, flawed individuals,
Right.
capable of both great love and terrible acts.
Like Laura. She's clearly trying to protect herself, but she's also manipulating those around her.
Yeah.
And Daniel, he's torn between his love for Laura and his growing connection with Susanna. Even Bogomil, the wolf god, seems caught between his duty to Molomog and his desire for freedom.
It's like Link is saying that we all have the capacity for both light and darkness within us. It's the choices we make, the paths we choose to follow that ultimately determine who we become.
It's a reminder that even in a world of magic and monsters, it's the human heart that's the most unpredictable and often the most dangerous element.
Speaking of dangerous, let's talk about Melomaga's growing influence in the human world. She's not just content with ruling the spirit world. She wants to break into our reality, to turn people into stone statues and create a world in her own image.
It's chilling. And it's interesting how she's not depicted as this monstrous, otherworldly creature. She's described as beautiful, alluring, even.
Right.
But with this underlying sense of menace. It's like she's the ultimate femme fatale, using her beauty and power to seduce and control.
It adds another layer to the theme of deception. Appearances can be deceiving. We see that with Mr. Anabin, too,
Right.
how he presents himself as this harmless music teacher, but he's orchestrating events behind the scenes, playing with people's lives like chess pieces.
It's a reminder that power can corrupt even when it's disguised as something good or innocent.
And speaking of power, did you find yourself questioning how you would react if you were in the teen's shoes?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If I suddenly discovered I could manipulate memories with a guitar riff, I'd be tempted to try it out.
Yeah.
But then you think about the consequences, the ethical implications. It's a slippery slope.
It makes you wonder if anyone is truly equipped to handle that kind of power. And it ties back to the theme of responsibility, which is such a big part of the story. These teens are thrust into roles they never asked for, forced to make life or death decisions with limited knowledge and experience.
It's like Link is saying that adulthood isn't about having all the answers. It's about learning to navigate the gray areas, making tough choices, and dealing with the consequences.
And those consequences are often unpredictable. Think about Mo bringing back his deceased mother from a romance novel. He thought he was doing something good fulfilling his grandmother's wish.
Right.
But it backfires in a big way. It highlights the unintended consequences of magic. How even with the best intentions, things can go terribly wrong.
It's a good reminder that even in a world of magic, actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are far more complicated and far-reaching than we could have imagined.
Speaking of consequences, the book also delves into the lasting impact of trauma. All three teens have died and come back changed. Laura seems to be in denial, trying to erase the whole death thing from her memory. Mo is wrestling with grief and guilt, and even Bowie, in his constant transformations, seems to be struggling to find a stable sense of self.
It's like they're all haunted by their experiences, even as they try to move forward. And that's something we can all relate to, even without the supernatural element.
Yeah.
We all carry our past with us, the good and the bad. And those experiences shape who we are, how we interact with the world, and the choices we make.
Exactly. And it made me think about how each character copes with trauma differently. Some, like Laura, try to suppress it, while others, like Mo, confront it head-on. There's no right or wrong way to deal with pain and loss, but Link shows us the different path we can take and the challenges each path presents.
And then there's Susanna, who at first seems unaffected by the magical chaos around her. But as the story unfolds, we see her slowly unraveling. Her dreams about Bogomil, her growing connection with both Daniel and Thomas, it's like she's being pulled into the darkness whether she wants to be or not.
I think Susanna represents the idea that even the most grounded, seemingly normal people can be affected by trauma, even if it's not directly inflicted upon them. She's a witness to the pain and suffering of others, and that takes a toll on her own psyche.
It's like she's absorbing the darkness around her, even as she tries to maintain a sense of normalcy. And that makes her journey all the more compelling because it reminds us that we're all interconnected, that the pain of others can touch us, even when we think we're safe and removed from it.
And it makes her eventual embrace of her own power all the more satisfying.
Right.
She goes from being the observer to becoming a key player, literally holding the fate of worlds in her hands.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential for greatness within us, even when we don't realize it. Sometimes it takes a crisis, a moment of upheaval, to awaken that power and force us to step into our true selves.
Speaking of awakenings, one of the things that struck me about the book is how it uses fairy tales and mythology to explore modern themes.
Right. You've got the obvious references to Beauty and the Beast with Bogomil, and the whole Lost Key plot has echoes of classic quest narratives. But there are also these subtle nods to other myths and legends woven throughout the story.
It's like Link is tapping into a collective unconscious drawing on these archetypal stories to explore timeless themes of love, loss, sacrifice, and the struggle between good and evil. But she's also giving these stories a modern twist, making them relevant to contemporary readers.
It's like she's saying that even though we live in a technologically advanced world, we're still grappling with the same fundamental questions that have haunted humanity for centuries.
Right.
Who are we? Why are we here? What is the meaning of life?
And how do we find love and happiness in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable?
Big questions.
Right.
And Link doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, she gives us a story that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, a story that invites us to grapple with these questions ourselves and come to our own conclusions.
And that's part of what makes The Book of Love such a rewarding read. It's a story that stays with you, prompting you to reflect on your own life, your own choices, and your own beliefs about the world.
It's a book that challenges us to think differently, to embrace the unknown, and to find beauty and meaning in the most unexpected of places.
Speaking of unexpected places, one of the things that surprised me about the book was the ending. I don't want to give anything away, but it's not your typical happily ever after.
It's definitely not predictable. Link throws in a few twists that left me reeling, and the final scene raises more questions than it answers.
But I think that's part of the brilliance of it. It leaves us wanting more. But it also forces us to confront the reality that life rarely ties things up neatly in a bow. There are always loose ends, unanswered questions, and the possibility of things changing in an instant.
It's like she's saying that the story doesn't end when you close the book. It continues in our imaginations in the way we carry the characters and their experiences with us, and in the way we apply the lessons we've learned to our own lives.
And that's ultimately what makes the Book of Love such a powerful and enduring work of art. It's not just a story, it's an experience, one that invites us to participate, to question, to feel, and to keep searching for our own truths, even when the answers seem elusive.
It's a reminder that the journey is just as important as the destination, and that even in a world full of magic and mystery, it's the human connection, the shared experiences of love, loss, and hope that truly matters.
Speaking of human connection, one of the things I found most compelling about the Book of Love is the way it portrays relationships.
Right? It's not just about romantic love. Link explores the complexities of family bonds, friendships, and even the strange, almost symbiotic relationship between humans and the supernatural.
It's like she's saying that connection is essential to our well-being, that we need each other to survive, to thrive, to make sense of the world, and that those connections can take many forms, some healthy, some destructive, but all ultimately shaping who we are and how we navigate the world.
And it's interesting how even the relationships with the supernatural beings like Bogomil and Bowie have this element of humanity to them.
Mm.
They're not just monsters or mythical creatures. They have their own desires, their own struggles, their own complexities.
It blurs the line between human and other, suggesting that maybe we're not so different after all. Maybe we all share the same basic needs for connection, for love, for belonging. And maybe those needs transcend the boundaries of species, of worlds, even of life and death.
It's a pretty profound idea, and it makes you question our place in the grand scheme of things. Are we really so special, or are we just another part of this interconnected web of life, all striving to survive, to connect, and to find meaning in a universe that often feels indifferent to our struggles?
It's a question that Link leaves us to ponder, but I think the book ultimately offers a message of hope, a reminder that even in a world full of darkness and uncertainty, there's still beauty to be found, connections to be made, and stories to be told.
And that's a message that I think we can all hold on to, especially in times like these. Sometimes it's the simple act of sharing a story, of connecting with another human being that can make all the difference.
Speaking of sharing stories, did you notice how Link herself plays with the idea of storytelling throughout the book?
Absolutely. It's not just the plot that's captivating. It's the way she uses language, the way she weaves together sentences, the way she creates these vivid images and metaphors that stay with you long after you finish reading.
She's a master of language, and she uses it to create a sense of wonder, of magic, of possibility. It's like she's inviting us to step into her imagination, to experience the world through her eyes, and to see the extraordinary in the ordinary.
And she doesn't shy away from experimenting with structure and form. The way she jumps between perspectives, the way she plays with time, it all adds to the sense of disorientation, of being caught in a dream, of never quite knowing what's real and what's imagined.
It's a style that reflects the themes of the novel itself, how memory can be unreliable, how reality can be fluid, and how our perceptions of the world are constantly being shaped and reshaped by our experiences.
It's a reminder that there's always more than one way to tell a story, more than one way to see the world, and that the most interesting narratives are often the ones that challenge our expectations and force us to question everything we thought we knew.
Speaking of questioning everything, one of the things that kept coming back to me was the idea of the someday girl.
Oh yeah, it's such a haunting and beautiful concept. This person who exists outside of time, who's always on the verge of becoming, but never quite arrives.
It's like a metaphor for the human condition, for our constant striving for something more, our longing for fulfillment, our search for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless.
We're all, in a sense, someday girls, aren't we? Always reaching for that future self, that idealized version of who we might become. And yet the present moment keeps slipping away, and we're left wondering if we'll ever truly arrive at our destination.
It's a sobering thought, but it's also a reminder to cherish the present moment, to appreciate the journey, even as we strive for something more. Because ultimately, it's the small moments, the connections we make, the experiences we share that make life worth living.
It's about finding beauty in the everyday, even when the world feels like it's falling apart. And that's a message that I think we can all take to heart, especially in times like these.
Speaking of times like these, did you find yourself drawing any parallels between the events in the book and the state of the world today?
Oh, definitely. The themes of environmental destruction, social unrest, and the rise of authoritarianism are all present in the Book of Love, even though it's set in a fantastical world.
It's like Link is holding up a mirror to our own society, reflecting back our anxieties, our fears, and our hopes for the future.
The way Malamog is trying to break into the human world to impose her will on everyone, it felt eerily reminiscent of some of the political and social trends we're seeing today.
And the way the characters are struggling to find their place in a world that's constantly changing, that's full of uncertainty and danger, that resonated with me on a personal level.
It's like she's capturing the zeitgeist, the feeling of unease and uncertainty that many of us are experiencing right now, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. There's also a sense of hope, a belief in the power of human connection, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can choose to fight for what we believe in, to stand up for what's right, and to create a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
And that's a message that I think we can all get behind, regardless of our political beliefs or personal experiences.
Speaking of personal experiences, one of the things I appreciated about the Book of Love is how it explores the different ways we experience and process grief.
Right. Each character deals with loss in their own way. Laura tries to erase it from her memory. Mo struggles to let go, and even Bowie's transformation seemed to be a reflection of his own internal turmoil.
It's like Link is saying that there's no right or wrong way to grieve, that it's a personal journey that's unique to each individual. And it's a reminder to be compassionate towards those who are grieving, to offer support without judgment, and to allow them the space and time they need to heal.
It's a message that is particularly relevant in today's world, where we're all experiencing so much loss, both on a personal and collective level.
And it's a message that's delivered with nuance and sensitivity without being preachy or sentimental.
Speaking of nuance, one of the things I found most fascinating about the book is how it plays with the concept of memory.
Right, memory is not a reliable narrator in this story. It's fragmented, subjective, and constantly being reshaped by the character's experiences and desires.
And with Laura's ability to manipulate memories, it makes you question the very nature of reality. What is real when our memories can be so easily altered?
It's a question that philosophers have been grappling with for centuries, and Link explores it in a way that's both intriguing and unsettling.
It made me think about how our own memories shape our perceptions of the world, and how those perceptions can be easily manipulated not just by magical powers, but by the media, by social pressures, and by our own internal biases.
It's a reminder to be critical of what we see and hear, to question our own assumptions, and to be wary of anyone who claims to hold the absolute truth.
Especially when they're offering you a chance to erase your bad memories and rewrite your personal narrative.
Right, because who gets to decide what's real, what's important, and what's worth remembering?
It's a question that Link leaves us to ponder. But I think the book ultimately suggests that even though memory can be unreliable, it's still a powerful force that shapes who we are and how we understand the world.
And that maybe the most important memories aren't the ones that are perfectly preserved, but the ones that have been reshaped and reframed by time, by experience, and by the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we've been through.
It's like she's saying that memory is not just about preserving the past. It's about making meaning of it, about finding the lessons, the insights, and the moments of grace that can help us navigate the present and shape a better future.
Speaking of the future, one of the things that struck me about the book is how it ends on a note of both hope and uncertainty.
Right. It's not a clear-cut resolution.
Yeah.
There are still loose ends, unanswered questions, and the possibility of things changing in an instant.
But I think that ambiguity is intentional. It's a reflection of life itself, how we never really know what's going to happen next, and how we have to learn to live with uncertainty and embrace the unknown.
And it's a reminder that the story doesn't end when we close the book. It continues in our imaginations and the way we carry the characters and their experiences with us, and in the way we apply the lessons we've learned to our own lives.
And that's ultimately what makes the Book of Love such a powerful and enduring work of art. It's not just a story. It's an experience, one that invites us to participate, to question, to feel, and to keep searching for our own truths, even when the answers seem elusive.
It's a reminder that the journey is just as important as the destination, and that even in a world full of magic and mystery, it's the human connection, the shared experiences of love, loss, and hope that truly matters.
And that's what makes it a book worth revisiting, worth discussing, and worth sharing with others.
Absolutely. And speaking of sharing, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the Book of Love, what resonated with you, what questions are still swirling in your mind. Head over to our social media pages and let us know.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Read for more insightful explorations of captivating literature. We'll be back soon with the final part of our discussion where we'll delve even deeper into the mysteries of the Book of Love. Until then, happy reading.
One thing I keep thinking about is the role of choice in all of this. These teens are facing impossible odds dealing with magic they barely understand and a goddess who's basically a supernatural tyrant. But within all that chaos, they still have to make choices that shape their destinies.
That's what makes it so compelling. It's not just fate or destiny driving them. They have agency even when it feels like they're being manipulated by forces beyond their control.
Think about Laura. She chooses to use her memory manipulation powers even when it's morally questionable. Daniel chooses to accept his role as a guardian, even though it means sacrificing his freedom. And Mo chooses to explore his magic, even knowing it could lead him down a dangerous path.
Each choice has consequences, some good, some bad, and it's like Link is saying that even when we feel powerless, we still have the ability to shape our own lives, even if it's just in small ways.
And those small choices can have a ripple effect, impacting not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us.
Speaking of ripples, did you notice how Link uses water imagery throughout the book? The ocean is a constant presence in Love Send, and it's often described as both beautiful and terrifying.
It definitely sets the mood. There's this sense of vastness, of mystery, of hidden depth that mirrors the magical elements of the story. And the way the ocean can be calm one minute and stormy the next reflects the unpredictable nature of the characters' lives.
It's like the ocean represents the subconscious, the realm of emotions, the unknown forces that are both within us and outside of us.
And it ties back to the theme of memory, how it can be fluid, shifting like the tides.
And how it can be both life-giving and destructive, like a tsunami. It's a powerful metaphor that runs throughout the book, adding another layer of complexity to the story.
And speaking of complexity, I loved how Link doesn't shy away from exploring the darker aspects of human nature. We see jealousy, betrayal, manipulation, even violence woven into the fabric of this seemingly whimsical world.
It adds a layer of realism, I think. It's a reminder that even in a world of magic and wonder, darkness exists, and that even the most well-intentioned characters are capable of making terrible mistakes.
It's like she's saying that light and shadow are two sides of the same coin, that good and evil aren't always clear-cut, and that even in the midst of beauty, there's always the potential for darkness to emerge.
And that makes the characters' choices all the more meaningful. They're not just choosing between good and evil, they're navigating a complex moral landscape where the lines are blurred and the consequences are often unpredictable.
It's a challenge that we all face in our own lives, even without the magical element. We're constantly making choices, weighing the potential good against the potential harm, and trying to figure out what's right, even when there are no easy answers.
Speaking of no easy answers, one thing I found fascinating was how Link subverts our expectations of traditional fairy tales and myths.
Absolutely. She takes these familiar archetypes, the wolf god, the lost key, the quest for immortality, and twists them, making them feel fresh and unexpected.
Think about Bogomil. He's this powerful wolf-like being, but he's not the typical big bad wolf.
Right.
He's complex, even sympathetic at times.
Yeah.
He's bound to serve Malamug, but he also seems to be searching for his own freedom.
It's like she's saying that even the most monstrous creatures can have a soul, a longing for something more than just power or destruction.
And then there's the key itself. It's not just some magical object that unlocks a door. It's split in half, with one part being Laura's old guitar. It's a weird detail, but it speaks to the idea that magic is often hidden in the mundane, that the things we take for granted can hold extraordinary power.
It's like she's saying that magic isn't just about spells and potions. It's about the way we see the world, the way we connect with each other, the way we find meaning in the everyday.
And speaking of everyday life, did you notice how Link blends the fantastical with the mundane so seamlessly? One minute we're talking about ancient goddesses, and the next minute we're discussing homework and teenage crushes.
It's one of the things I love about her writing. It's this weird juxtaposition that makes the story feel both grounded and otherworldly at the same time.
It's like she's saying that magic isn't separate from our lives. It's woven into the fabric of our everyday experiences. It's just a matter of paying attention, of being open to the possibility of wonder, even in the most ordinary of things.
And it makes the story more relatable, more accessible.
Yeah.
We can all relate to the feeling of being overwhelmed by schoolwork, the awkwardness of first love, the pain of losing someone we care about.
And those relatable experiences make the magical elements all the more impactful. It's like she's saying that even in a world full of wonder and possibility, the human heart remains the same, with its capacity for both great love and terrible suffering.
Speaking of suffering, did you find yourself feeling sympathetic toward Camilla Morgan at times? I mean, she's clearly the villain, but she's also motivated by loss and grief.
It's a testament to Link's skill as a writer, that she can make us feel empathy for a character who's essentially trying to enslave humanity. But you're right, there's a vulnerability to Milamog, a desperation that stems from her loss.
It humanizes her, even as she's committing these monstrous acts. It makes you think about the complexities of good and evil, how even the most villainous characters have their reasons, their motivations, their own internal struggles.
And it's a reminder that judging others is rarely simple. We all have our own stories, our own wounds, our own reasons for doing the things we do, and sometimes the line between victim and villain is blurry at best.
It's a thought-provoking message, and one that I think is particularly relevant in today's world, where it's so easy to demonize those who hold different views or make different choices.
Speaking of choices, the ending of the Book of Love leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions. What will become of the teens? Will Daniel and Susanna find happiness as guardians? Does Laura embrace her power, or does she find a way to escape it?
It's frustrating in a way to be left hanging like that, but it's also kind of brilliant. It forces us to engage with the story, to imagine our own endings, to continue the narrative in our own minds.
It's like she's saying that the story doesn't end when we close the book. It continues in our imaginations, in the way we carry the characters and their experiences with us, and in the way we apply the lessons we've learned to our own lives.
And that's ultimately what makes the Book of Love such a powerful and enduring work of art. It's not just a story, it's an experience, one that invites us to participate, to question, to feel, and to keep searching for our own truths, even when the answers seem elusive.
And that's a journey we all share, whether we're readers, writers, or simply human beings trying to make sense of this wild, wonderful, and often heartbreaking world.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into The Book of Love by Kelly Link. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this captivating novel with us.
If you're looking for a book that will challenge your perceptions, expand your imagination, and stay with you long after you've finished reading, we highly recommend picking up a copy of The Book of Love. It's a wild ride full of twists, turns, and unexpected moments of beauty and insight.
And if you've enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Read for more insightful discussions of captivating literature. We're always exploring new worlds, uncovering hidden meanings, and connecting with fellow book lovers. So join us on this journey of literary discovery, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, happy reading.